This is the notes for 1.2 number lines with negatives. Just a reminder, all of our notes are recorded like we mentioned yesterday. So if you happen to be gone, you can watch these from home, or if you want to go back during study hall or later tonight to rewatch them, feel free. You can also pause me if you happen to write a little bit slower than I do. That's totally okay. All right, so let's start with graphing numbers. It says graph each of the numbers on a number line. So let's start here with -7. To put -7 on my number line, I'm going to put a dot. Please do not use an X. Also, please don't have something up here hovering. I want a dot that's on my number line so I know exactly where you're trying to mark. I also need a label so I know which one you're trying to do. Okay, so for -7, for example, I'm going to put a dot at -7 and go ahead and write -7 above it. All right, 5.5. So I'm going to the positive side this time, between 5 and 6. So this would be 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5 is halfway between 5 and 6. I'm going to put a nice dot on there. Please no X's. And on my number line so I know for sure where you're marking. And we're going to label this 5.5. All right, -2/3. So now I'm back towards my negative direction. So I'm going this way. So -1, -2, -3. Same thing here with my fraction. So here's -1/3, -2/3, -1 whole. -1/3, -2/3, 1 whole. So I can partition that as I'm going backwards. So from 0, -2/3 is less than -1, and I'm going to go back 1/3, 2/3. Put a nice dot on my number line, and go ahead and give me a label there above it. Then we're looking for -4.5. Same thing. I'm going in my negative direction. So here's -3, -3.5, -4, -4.5, -5. So -4.5 is more than owing me -$4. I was in the whole $4.50, so I'm halfway between -4 and -5. Okay. Last one in our negatives, -3.2. It's a little tricky, so I'm in the whole $1, $2, $3. $3.20 would be slightly more, right? But obviously not close to -$4. So this is where I want to be as precise as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and put a dot really close to -3. Again, no X's and nothing above it. I want a dot on my number line that was more towards -3 than -4. So being in the whole $3.20, right, is only slightly worse than just being in the whole $3. Our last one, 7/3, I'm going to go ahead and change to a fraction. That's improper to a mixed number. So if I do 7 divided by 3, I would have 2 whole numbers. 3 times 2 would require 6 pieces, and that would leave me with 1/3 left over. So I'm going in my positive direction this time. So 1, 2, 3. 2 is slightly more. 2 and 1/3 is slightly more than my 2. So this time again, if you want to, I could say 2 and 1/3, 2 and 2/3, 2 and 3/3. 3/3 mean that next whole number 3. So 2 and 1/3 gave me a nice dot on that number line, slightly more than 2. Okay. So on your test, same thing. There's going to be 5 or 6 numbers here for you to put. Every time I need a dot that's on the number line. Okay. Please no X's and nothing hovering. I want something that's on the number line. Also, if you label it, it makes it a lot easier for your teachers to grade, and it's easier for you to double check and go back and make sure you didn't miss any of your numbers. Okay. All right, the tricky part about today is graphing something that we call inequalities. So to graph an inequality, it says put a closed dot for less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, and then an open dot for greater than or less than. Okay, so notice when I read that, this means greater than or equal to. That bar underneath means equal to, and in that case, I get to fill in my dot. Okay, if it's an open circle, it means that it is not equal to it. Okay, that case, then I leave it open. All right, so it says put a closed dot, so I'm gonna put it like this, like last time. If it's greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. Okay, so just looking through my examples here. In letter B, I had something less than or equal to -2. So at -2, I can go and put a dot and fill it in. Or at A, it said greater than or equal to. So again, at 0, I can go ahead and fill in that dot. Okay. The ones that it says we're not equal to, that's simply greater than or less than, I'm going to go ahead and put in open circle. So in this example, I had simply greater than, so I had an open circle at 4. In this one, I was looking for less than -1, so again, open circle at -1. Okay, so that was my first kind of bullet point there. I put a closed dot and I fill it in if I have that bar underneath, because it means the solution is equal to. If there is no bar underneath, make sure you leave that circle open to show that it's not a solution. Okay. My second direction says shade to the right for greater than or to the left for lesser than. So as I say this, x is greater than 4. It says we're supposed to shade to the right. Okay. I know that can be hard for some of us. We're not quite sure how to read this in order to get that direction. Okay, because in case my x was over here, then it would be flipped. Okay, so what I like to do is think of what's something I could put in here to make it true. If I put in, let's say 0, is 0 bigger than 4? Would my alligator mouth be correct if I had a 0 here? No, 0 is not bigger than 4. But I shaded to the right, so let's try 5. Is 5 bigger than 4? Yes, it is. Okay, I could keep going. Is 6 bigger than 4? Is 7 bigger than 4? Yes, anything in this direction is bigger than 4. Okay, even 5.7 decimal is also bigger than 4. That's why we shade it. Okay, in B, it says less than or equal to. Less than, I'm shading to the left. Okay, but again, let's look at what that actually means. If I put in 0, is 0 smaller than -2? Is 0 a worse situation? No, it is not. Okay, is -2 smaller than or equal to -2? Yes, it is, because it's equals to. So that's why I filled in the dot. Okay, let's try -3.53. Just making up a number. Is that a worse situation to be in the hole $3.53 than in the hole 2? And yes, it is. So that's why we shaded everything there to the left. All right, last two. So something bigger than 0. So A is greater than or equal to 0. We're going to go ahead and shade to the right. And again, just give yourself a check step or two. Put in 1. Is 1 bigger than 0? Yes. Is 3.5 bigger than 0? Yes. Is 5 1/3 bigger than 0? Yes. So I know to shade correctly if everything in that number line works in that direction. We also filled it in equals to, because 0 equals 0. Okay. Our last one, we're looking for y is smaller than -1. So if I put in -1, is that smaller than -1? False. That is not true, so I need an open circle. But let's say -$1.20. Is that worse than only owe me $1? It is. So I'm going to shade everything from my -1 all the way over to the left. So there's a bunch of fractions and decimals in here that exist, so I can't just start a closed circle there at -2. I could have -1.1, -1 2/10, -1 and let's say 3/5. There's a bunch of decimals and fractions here that exist. So I simply leave an open circle at -1 because -1 is not equal to, right? So it's not less than because it's equal to. But I could have a bunch of decimals and fractions, then this direction would keep fulfilling that number sentence. Okay. The last thing in your notes today says the opposites are two numbers whose sum is 0. So for example, 3 and -3 are opposites. On a number line, they're the same distance from 0, but in different directions. So 0 is its own opposite. Again, if you want to give yourself another example, let's just go with 5.2. If I went 5.2 to the right from 0, the opposite of that in the other direction would be -5.2. Okay, my opposite is just the positive and the negative, or if I had -3, then +3 would be the opposite direction from 0. Okay, if it's positive, the opposite is negative, or vice versa. Okay, so those are your notes for 1.2. Go ahead and leave them out for the practice today. Your teachers will want to come around and check to make sure you have all your notes filled in, and they're also going to use them to refer to them during the practice.